If I could please ask everyone to stand for our opening karakia. Tahirua toruwha, tu taua mai ronga, tu taua mai raro, tu taua mai roto, tu taua mai waho, kia tau ai te Māori tū, te Māori ora, ki te katoa, pume, puie, tai hie. We have no apologies today. Are there any conflicts of interest? It's my absolute pleasure to welcome our guests that we have speaking to us in our public forum today. So welcome to Narino Te Wāti, Teresa O'Brien and Bex. Sorry that I... It's okay. Who are here representing Māori Movement to actually give us an evaluation presentation of a whānau transformation program that we sponsored, and it is the first of this type of program that has been run throughout the whole country. So it's great to have you all here today to present to us, and I will pass over.
Thank you very much, Kirsten. Mihi atu kia koutou i te wānei. Thank you very much, Napier City Council, for having us this morning as we present to you some of our outcomes, highlights and challenges of whānau transformation pilot program, which was funded from Napier City Council. So we will take this opportunity to share with you some of the data that we've been able to collect, and you should have in front of you a copy of the external evaluation that was conducted by Jenny Crown, so feel free to have a look through that as we present, and if you have any questions you can ask along the way, or we can take questions at the end. Next slide, thank you. So the whānau transformation program initiated in August last year. We split the fund that was the grant that we had received into delivering two particular cohorts of a 10-week whānau transformation program, which targeted the two gangs that reside here in Napier. So Omarunui was a community in which we delivered the first cohort, and Waiōhiki was the second community where we delivered the second cohort. So we'll speak to each of the cohorts, we'll share some of the statistics for each, and then we'll go over some highlights and challenges of the program. So the first one was in Omarunui. Just next slide, thank you. We had how we gained interest for this particular community is we conducted an information evening where members of Omarunui were able to come in and hear a little bit about what was on offer. And so we had 45 people attend the info evening, and out of the 45 people we had 41 register. A large percentage of those who registered were residents of Omarunui. There were a percentage that come from outside of that particular community, but a large percentage were residents of that suburb. The gender split was, we had more tāne on this program, so 27 tāne and 14 wahine, and they were aged between 24 and 57 years. In terms of the employment statistics, we just nearly 60% of them were in some type of employment. 32% were unemployed or underemployed, and we had 10% that were working casual or part-time. We conducted a baseline survey of each of the participants, which covered a whole raft of aspects. However, we've only just picked a few to share with you today. But out of that initial survey, 90% of those who had registered for the program had rated their confidence and their connection to who they are and their identity as 3 out of 5 or less. Most were rated around 1 to 2. 80% of those who participated in the Omarunui program had experienced some form of domestic violence, either as a victim or perpetrator, or both. And 67% had some form of substance abuse. Most were multiple substance abusers. So that's just to give you a little bit of a snapshot of what we were working with, and we know that particular community has a very strong allegiance and alliance to the Mangumok, and so we had quite a strong representation of the whiro whānau participating in that particular cohort. Thank you. I'll pass it over to Ngaringo now to share a little bit about the 10 weeks, what the participants received, what tools they learnt, and then we'll speak to the outcomes.
Tēnā tātou te whare. How we navigated the 10 weeks is we started with a level 1 te whare ai o wānanga, which is a 2-day retreat for our whānau, and we decided to stay within Maraenui. Usually I like to go outside into nature and get them out of the busy frequency just to remove them from an environment that's already quite hostile. So we decided to stay in the heart of Maraenui. What we started to notice was that the kids and the whānau were gravitating towards the space, so they wanted to be involved in the process. So it's not like us to turn anybody away, so we left our doors open for any of the kids or whānau that wanted to come in and join the kaupapa. Obviously they felt the energy and the light and the weight of the space. Entering into that space, we go on a 5-week journey where we meet together at Te Orangapu Manawa in the heart of Maraenui, and we have a 2-hour weekly session. Normally we put everybody in a state of Māori meditation. That's really to go and clean up the internal processes and realign your heart's purpose in order for you to connect into your ancestors, so your ancestors start to govern and guide your energetic playing field in terms of the direction and the pathway in which you want to, what you're seeking anyway. And then we open discussion and have a particular back end known as a koho. A koho is really about opening up ancient knowledge and wisdom. We feel like a lot of them that were on the addiction kaupapa, for them to replace anything, we found that knowledge was a good replacement for them to supplement the substances that they were taking. So they were doing without the drugs to suppress anything, but we were replacing it with wisdom and knowledge. What that meant is that they had to sacrifice trauma. We know direct trauma is quite huge overall in the population of the country, but Māori hold the highest percentages when it comes to direct trauma experiences. I started to recognise that there were repeated patterns through intergenerational. So then we started to climb up a little bit higher and start to heal some of the repeated patterns that have been happening in every individual's intergenerational trauma, and it backdates over 150 years ago to when colonisation was in full effect. That's where the death spiral started to happen for Māori, and that's why we are leading in some of the worst statistics in the country, but in particular we're seeing Hawke's Bay rise in these statistics, in these numbers. And so this was a way for us to be able to create a safe space for our whānau to approach those situations. From there, in the 5-week mark, we split everybody and we put everybody into a mana wahine and a mana tāne wānanga, so the tāne and the wahine split. The men, we started to find that they don't like speaking in front of women. And women kind of find it a little bit intimidating around men, so we decided to split them, and we evolved massively out of that. So we went into the cohort split, and then we had the last 5-week term was to go into a level 2 wānanga right at the end. The level 2 wānanga elevated them and put them on a journey of purpose. And so we took them through the depths of te pō, which is the depths of darkness, and brought them back into the light. We understood that there would be maybe a 3-month counterpart play for the wānanga to continue as long as they were activated. And now most of those ones in Maraenui have journeyed into other ventures and just waiting for us to make a decision on when we're going to stand again.
Slide. So based on the delivery of that 10-week program, these are some of the outcomes, and you heard in the previous session more raw, real outcomes. So out of the 41, we had 30 graduate, which was a 75% retention rate, which is significantly successful for the particular communities that we are engaging with. we've averaged the ripple effect. So when you think of a particular individual and then their whānau unit, their friends and family, the average ripple effect of 300 people minimum for the wānanga. And those of you that would have heard the kōrero before, that's a very low percentage in terms of the ripple effect out into the wider community. From those graduates, we have had 4 enter into higher education. Most of those have been going back to learn the reo, going back to learn their own language and reconnect with who they are. We had 1 engage into higher, that's actually 2, I've just been told, 2 engage into employment. So employment that is more aligned to who they are and more meaningful, higher skilled and higher paid. We know that we, Māori in general, are low skilled, low paid employment is where a large portion of us sit. And another highlight for us is that we had 4 business startups out of this particular cohort. 100% when we done the post-intervention, 100% of the graduates had an increase in their levels of confidence and identity to who they are and where they whakapapa to. 92% said that they had a decrease in the number of occurrences of domestic violence within their own whare and the severity of it. So if there is a situation that did arise in their household, they were now equipped with the tools to be able to navigate that space a lot better to prevent it from getting out of control. And 90% of the graduates are working towards minimising or depleting their substance abuse. So for us, those are amazing outcomes in terms of the Omarunui program. Next slide, thank you. So Waiōhiki, we'll move over to Waiōhiki now, which is the second cohort. Waiōhiki started in what month? March this year. So we took a break over the Christmas period to allow the whānau to spend time with each other and then kicked off in March for Waiōhiki. We worked in partnership with Ngāti Pāro and the whānau over there, so Dennis and Chad and others within Ngāti Pāro endorsed and helped logistically with the delivery of this particular cohort. If we move to the next slide, we had word of mouth is the best form of marketing, and so for this particular info evening, we nearly doubled and had 98 people attend the info evening, and out of that 98 we had 74 people register. A lot of the registrations there were a large percentage of those who would like to, that showed an interest to participate, that were from outside of Waiōhiki, but with the support of Ngāti Pāro representation, we accepted those registrations as well as serviced that particular community as well. The gender split was we had a fair balance, 39 wahine, 35 tāne, ages between 22 and 63. In terms of the employment, 42% in employment, 50% of them were beneficiaries, which is a significant number, and 8% casual or part-time workers. Post intervention, when we resurveyed our whānau, 95, we're in the snapshot. So 95% had rated their level of confidence 3 out of 5 or less. So what we're seeing is we're dealing with a large percentage of our community who have a low level of self-worth and self-value and self-love. And again, the statistics are really high in terms of the domestic violence, so 90% of them had experienced domestic violence, either as a perpetrator, victim, or both. And another high percentage there, 72% substance abuse. So we'll just share the journey of Waiōhiki. I'll just pass that over to Ngaringo.
Hey. See Papa Dennis O'Reilly giving us a little bit of a tour on O Tātara. So we had a large majority of people that whakapapatu o Tātara and Ngāti Pāro that have never been to Ngāti Pāro or Tātara. So this was their calling back home, and Dennis gave the kōrero about the two pā sites in o Tātara and Hikurangi, the two mountains there, and the te tainga mai o Takitimu. The arrival of Takitumu, in which he spoke about Ngāti Awa, was quite present in that particular area at the time, and gave us an overall history, and that's where we held the wānanga. We decided to take the wānanga outside of the whare and put it up on the pā, and so we journeyed there and made a connection back into the land, the river, Tutaikuri, the two mountains that reside in that space, and te whare o Tāwhaki, which is the marae down at EIT. So we wanted to make this more communal and more connected for the people of Waiōhiki. But obviously we were very, very sensitive in terms of the way that we walk into that space, knowing we've just served in Omarunui, which a lot of our Mangumo whānau were, and then moving across over into Black Power territory. And so we were aware of that. And so myself, Teresa, went over and saw Dennis and had a meeting about how we could sort of miri and just massage this relationship to ensure that we got the trust of the people. And obviously that worked out well because we over-exceeded in the amount of registrations that come through. Moving forth in that, we took the same plan. This time we were dealing with a lot more fish, so we had to navigate that space a little bit more intimately. So I had to ask more pou to come in, more of the pillars that had come in. And what was really remarkable was that a lot of the marae nui lot actually came over for the opening wānanga to support Waiōhiki. And that was a massive change in itself. All of the red whānau wanted to come over, but I said no. I said let that whānau kind of just find their own feet and find their mauri and find their energy. But the intention was we want to come and help them. We want to come and help them breathe life into that space. But the call was made. I made the call just to leave them out. And you can come in at the end if it feels right. So we went through the same 10-week journey, amazing results, as you can see in the stats. Got to the graduation, and some of our Mangumo whānau from Maraenui turned up. I just want to highlight the fact that only a year and a half ago they were pointing guns at each other down at Taradale, ready to kill each other. Now we have some of those ones that came out of Maraenui not only there to support te whareaio in that space, but actually going up to the Black Power presidents and the members of Black Power and giving them a hongi to congratulate them on their journey of the 10 weeks. These were the same people that were in that rage down the road. So already we have dropped the barriers and the stigma of the tension that was between the two gangs, and now we're starting to form more communicative relationships between the two. But then now we're starting to see more confidence and comfortability from the community that see that. Because when you see that, you kind of drop your guard just a little bit more, and you can trust in the process of what's going to unfold. And now that those tensions have been kind of milled away, we've got an opportunity to be able to grow these two communities and actually put them into the same wānanga, which would be, bit of a miracle if you ask me, if you bring two formulated, respected gangs in one space, doing the same taku, learning the same whakapapa and understanding who they are as human beings, putting them in leadership positions in order for them to influence the next generation who are causing a little bit of riffraff down the bottom here. There's more leadership and direction inside of the communities for us to be able to trust in the process of what te whareaio's got to offer.
So some of the outcomes from Waiōhiki, we had 62 graduates with an 85% retention rate. That should be 620 people, not 62 people, my apologies, the ripple effect. We had 3 engage in higher education. Those 3 were all reo, so they've all enrolled into reo studies. We had 4 change their employment or gain new employment. We had 8 business startups out of Waiōhiki. And we had 1 home ownership as well. So out of 10 weeks, we were able to navigate. And if you look on the social return on investment on all of these things, it's not hard to do the maths that we are saving, we are returning in the millions for the investment that was given to us. 95% had rated their confidence, had an increase, of their confidence and identity. 90% said a decrease in the number of domestic violence occurrences and the severity, and a large the rationale behind that when we broke it down was because of the tools that they had gained and the knowledge that they had learnt through the 10-week program that they had participated in. So instead of doing what they normally know, the default of how they know how to operate safely, how they operate in their home units, they then would go home and practice the new tools and utilise those in their home environments. And lastly, 72% working towards minimising their substance abuse. So amazing stats for us. We are very proud of those stats. Some of the highlights for us, clearly just looking at those amazing men up there. You know, this is a demographic and part of the population that are very hard to reach. And even when you can reach them, they are hard to retain. But for us, the highlight was to actually see the shifts in a very vulnerable part of our community, in a very vulnerable population sector of Napier. So that was one of the highlights of our program. I'll pass it over to Ngaringo to share a couple more of his highlights.
I think when the last time we presented, we brought fish in, hohepa, and just showed the transformation and what that man has. I'll bring his stats up again. You know, that the man was on meth for a long period of time and had lost his kids and kind of losing his way, but you know, was submerged in the gang life since coming in the whare, and he was participating in an addiction program with Kahukura out in Central Hawke's Bay at the same time. So he was getting really good support. But what we saw surge from him, he now gets up at like 4 a.m. to train every day. He's kind of sort of turned his life around. His hair follicle testing came up 0, so he's been off meth for however long he has been now. He's got a new course of direction. He's got a wahine now. He's got a new partner. Which we all know what that would do for the heart. And in saying that, he's got quite a huge influence in terms of the transformational process that happens inside of Omarunui alone. And so, you know, out of Omarunui and Waiōhiki, these were just some cases of the transformations that we made to turn over the high statistics. But we had to dig really, really deep in order to find the root cause of the problem, and we actually found it quite a few generations up. It wasn't directly with the person. It was just repeated patterns of suppressed trauma over time. And so, you know, we went to the source, healed the source, and then we brought it back into ourselves to relay the pathway for us. So that's been one of my highlights, to see these fantastic-looking gentlemen turn their lives around.
I think one of the other highlights, and we're nearly there, Whānau, thank you for your patience in the presentation. One of the other highlights was the amount of people who we were able to just help redirect their pathway moving forward so that they can live a more fulfilled life. And you would have seen the statistics there on the amount of people that started their own businesses through their participation of Te Whare Aioa. And so Rebecca Clark is one of the participants of Waiōhiki, who has since started her own business. So I'll hand the time over to her to briefly speak to that.
Morena whānau anō. Love how you said briefly, okay? I've been directed into bullet points. I know you've really heard the essence of the kōrero this morning, and I don't want to try and replicate that. I would like to just try and perform a task that is very, very difficult to do, and that is articulate to other people what whānau transformation does for a person. We often talked about that, about how people would ask, what is it that you're doing? Oh, we're doing whānau transformation. What is that? And that's where the sentence stopped. But we couldn't actually tell people, but something was happening with us that other people could resonate with. One of the very first things I heard this man say to our Waiōhiki whānau, give me 10 weeks of your time. I'll give you 10 years back on your life. That resonated with me. I really thought that I was kind of sorted, okay? I had been sorted in a really solid career for 20 years, 2 wonderful grown children, and I really thought that I was standing up in the community as the person I was meant to be, living my true purpose. I had heard so many people talk about whānau transformation. It was creating this buzz through the community. And through Jack and Shelley that were here earlier this morning, I walked into their whare one afternoon as Shelley had finished the Omarunui cohort. I'm just going to be honest with you, I'm really nosy, okay? So I wanted to know, what was it that was doing this to my Māori friends. What was this? I had never seen or heard anything like this in Kainunu. So what was this thing? So I joined Wauhiki really to be nosy and think, well, I couldn't advocate this wonderful program if I didn't actually know what it was about. And the mahi that I do every day, it's about trying to lead Māori to a better place for themselves, but this was in an education realm. So I thought that having this as a tool for me to help other Māori is what I was here for. So wrong. Rebecca was here for herself. One of the notions that we also learn is about trusting the process. And something had led me to Wauhiki and to Ngāti Noa and to Te Aro Tāwhaki that day, where I thought I was going on the premise of being able to help others. But it was made quite apparent to me that I actually needed healing myself, and I was at quite a crossroads. So, long story short, I was teaching other Māori how to be successful in business inside a system that was very difficult to navigate myself through as well. If I was advocating to other Māori about being strong in business and being able to stand up outside there in the community, then I thought I'd better start backing myself. And what that caused for me is a change, and I know that I am the first one in my whānau to recognise that I had been ignorant to te ao Māori because it was taken away from me at an early stage in my life. Being able to come to whānau transformation, within the first night, it flipped my mind completely from the way I had been for 20 years. But for the strangest reasons, while it had completely flipped my mind, it felt right. It felt right. And that's where the trigger started for me. Oh my goodness, here I was standing an hour ago thinking that I had it all together. And within an hour, this man had opened up things for me that actually made me see, hang on a minute, was I also living and walking in my true light? I want to also just reflect on the fact that there were 80 people in this room that morning. 80 strangers. Yeah, there were a few of us that went, hey, hi, I know who you are. A few friends in there. Who would have ever thought that I know that these people have struggled with systems in terms of the help and support that was offered to them through a systemised approach. But you watch 80 people sitting around a room bringing up the most darkest, traumatic experiences to them in front of strangers, I just knew that this group of Māori would not do this outside of this safe space. It was amazing. I've been in a lot of places where Māori are definitely trying to lift themselves to a higher realm, but never had been given the space to do that effectively. We couldn't move forward unless we'd unpack the past. And that's what whānau transformation allowed me to do, was to come back to te ao Māori, then to recognise that I could also exist in te ao Pākehā. I am of both worlds. I am te ao Pākehā, I am te ao Māori. I live in those worlds all the time. But I was also living in a rotation, if you like, where I was having to leave the Māori part of me to go into the other world. Enough was enough. After week 5, I remember saying to Ngāti Noa, what have you done? What have you done? I am now 3 months out of my te whareao time, but not my journey. The journey will never finish. Out of this time of whānau transformation, the 10-week program, I have completely changed my life. I am now a proud business owner. I have moved from being part of a public system and will be moving into a private system where I can back myself and someone that will be strong with my own Pākehā inside both worlds. Within the moments of being able to make that decision for myself, and I will tell you that there was a decision I had been shy of for 25 years, for backing myself. I had been living a life led by a system. But never had I got the opportunity to stop and reflect about my true purpose, and was this aligning with me? I now am the proud business owner, working my own consulting business. I am now leading Māori towards having their own Pākehā. I am contributing to Māori economic development, Māori sustainability inside communities. That is Rebecca Clark's purpose. That is why she was here. I am one of those statistics. I did bring a child into the world when I was 15 years old. And I will be honest with you, the world around me told me I would never be anything now because of that. I have worked hard to become a positive statistic out of a system that already told me I was discounted. Māori movement gave me the space and the opportunity to just be Rebecca without the labels that the world had given me. I sincerely thank you to these korua, my hoa, my friends forever, and to you people for allowing us to come here this morning to just share with you. This will be a part of my life ongoing in terms of business, in terms of sustainability in the community. I will now be able to be strong enough to stand up and walk forward, creating generational change. I was lucky enough to be gifted a granddaughter at Christmas, and she will see a grandmother who knows her purpose, who is proud to stand up and to be Māori. Kia ora koutou.
Thank you for that. So some of the learnings / challenges for us over this pilot program, and that happens with pilot programs. That's why you pilot them, to kind of test the model. And so, yep, we were tested on numerous levels, and so there were a couple that stood out for us, and one of those were definitely the demand, the numbers of people who wished to engage into the program, but we could only reach a certain capacity. But therein lies another opportunity as well. One of the other challenges that we had faced is the perception of te whareaio. It's been described numerous times this morning. It's really hard to articulate the whare. And so if you struggle to articulate wairua and how the whare operates, people will perceive based on their own ideas and concepts and judgments. So there is misinformed and conceptions and perceptions of what te whareaio is out in the community. So it is part of our job to demystify those and keep sharing who we are and what we're about and what we can do for our people. So there was, just to give you an example, there was a term reference to te whareaio as being a cult. And I'll pass that over to Ngaringo to respond to that.
Yeah, I've been called many things over my time in te whareaio practices, but a cult's not been one of them. And my only response to that is that we're not a cult, we're a culture. And we're claiming back the power of who we truly are as a people to navigate the space of how deeply rooted our connections are into the whenua, into our mountains, into our rivers, into our oceans. We are a people of a native language. So my job is to lead people back into their culture, lead them back into their language, because only 70 years ago this country passed a bill to say that you couldn't speak te reo Māori, and my mother was a stat and has whip marks on her back to say that when she spoke Māori she got beaten badly for it. The intention behind it then was kill the language and you'll kill the culture. Well, we're about to reverse that. So I've got a 4-year-old son who doesn't speak English. He speaks te reo Māori fluently. My mother doesn't speak te reo because she's scared to. So the only way that I'm going to get her to learn is give her a mokopuna that can't speak English, and now she has to learn. So really I'm forcing te reo down her throat so that she can gain back her mana, and she can heal herself through her traumas over time. And that's what you see in that slide over there, the learnings where we're taking our children back into the space and giving them some therapeutic practices so they don't have to suffer the abuse that their parents suffered. Kia ora.
Beautiful. Thank you. One of the other challenges and learnings that came forth quite strongly when executing this particular pilot, as well as other wānanga in the kahungunu rohe, is there is always a level of resistance for something new. And so we have experienced some resistance to a certain degree from all parts of the community. And so we are navigating that space as well, and that's from Māori and non-Māori. But for us, the people speak. The people spoke this morning, and they will continue to speak, and we will continue to miri some of those relationships, those misperceptions of what the whare is. But I think anything that is great and anything that will turn our people around will always be met with resistance. So for us, it's a good thing. We don't see it as a negative thing, but it has been something that has challenged us, which is good as well, because it keeps us on our toes and at the forefront of what we do, but it is there, and so we just wanted to acknowledge that. But we will still continue to serve the people. We will always continue to serve the people. So, and the other learning, I think, and lastly, the other learning, more affirmation is what we do works. And we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for supporting Te Whare Aio. So the next steps for us, last slide, you will have been given the evaluation form from our external evaluator, and so just to also note that this was not part of the budget, so we had covered that externally. And the recommendations are set in that evaluation. What we would like to do moving forward is actually capture the data more in depth, in a more in-depth way, in a more in-depth manner, and track participants over time. We would like to be able to extend that level of evaluation of the program moving forward, to be able to really articulate and be really precise in the NVP and the social return on investment, because we already know that it's in the millions. But it would be great to get more accurate data on the efficacy and the social return on investment for Te Whare Aio, so that we can potentially, we will be scaling, but it will assist in the scale of reaching more whānau in our communities. Interimly, the next steps for us, I think we had the Whiro whānau and the Black Power whānau and other gangs. So they both participated in their own space for wānanga. We would like to suggest that we hold a wānanga where we can bring those two communities together. That would be our next step for Te Whare Aio, and from there on, I would like to put it on the table that we utilise this partnership that we currently have to leverage how we can continue to save the lives of those that spoke this morning, that we can continue to keep our communities safe, that we can continue to encourage our people to start businesses, gain more meaningful and higher paid employment, so that we can start to see a decrease in the percentage of Māori that are represented in those statistics that we are overrepresented in. So that's the next steps that we see. But that's our presentation for this morning. Was there anything else? Yeah, so at this point in time, just would like to thank you all. A special mention to Natasha Mackey. Without Natasha on the ground, operationally within the council team, this wouldn't have happened. So we need to just mihi to Tasha. Thank you very much, Tasha, for supporting this kaupapa, and I'm sure that the councillors here appreciate the value that you bring to the table, because without her, this wouldn't have happened. Open the table for any partai if you've got any questions.
Thank you. So I will open up if councillors have any questions. Deputy Mayor Brosnan.
Thank you. It's been a really, really cool morning, actually, just hearing, from all of the participants. You touched on at the end there around sort of future steps, and you mentioned, I suppose, a number of the recommendations, and I just wanted to get a general feel from you, the recommendations in that evaluation report. Are there any in there that you won't be moving forward with, or you're kind of both on the same page as you read through that evaluation report of where you'll go next, take on board all of those?
Yes, we would. All of them, but I think it would happen in stages. So one of the aspects that we're working on at the moment with Te Whare Aio is the sustainability of the kaupapa within each of the regions. So Ngaringo is
PO.
Yeah. So working with our PO. So Ngaringo works across the whole country, and so what we're looking in terms of sustainability is identifying PO to be able to deliver the mechanisms here within that. So it's by community, for community. And we've spoken a lot about Māori, but this program is not exclusively for Māori, but it is Te Ao Māori. So one of the stages for us, which will be our next focus, will be training up PO within each of the regions that Te Whare Aio is based in, to be able to navigate that space so that it can be held within the communities.
Councillor Simpson.
Thank you for coming this morning. Sorry, hang on, I'll just drag this thing over. Thank you for coming this morning. There were a number of questions that I had, which you've already answered, thank you, around the longevity around longitudinal study on benefits and outcomes, and around follow-up. I think those were the three key things in my mind when reading the report and observing what's occurred. So further to that, and I know it's another agency that funded the review, have you had feedback from other agencies yet around their thoughts on the program and its benefits?
Yep, I'm working quite closely with New Zealand Defence Force at the moment. So the Defence have also aligned the kaupapa with MS2, who I've been working with as well, just to create kind of like without coding the wānanga, but getting their feedback on how it's going to look on a government system, I guess. But the most important thing that they are seeing is that the Māori frameworks that we are using cannot be measured or clinically compared to clinical practice. We're working with two completely different structures here, and so I think what we have to do is we have to kind of just be open to allowing that to unfold in a space where we can naturally let that land from a Māori perspective. Otherwise, if we start boxing it, it's going to kind of dismiss everything that we've worked really, really hard to do, which is to get these people in a safe space to open up. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question in that department. But yeah, NZ Defence Force and Ministry of Social Development are working quite closely with us as well. Thank you.
Just to add on to that, so the agencies that we have engaged or that are aware of the program are interested in supporting, but they're not. What we need to do is get everyone to come around the table. I think it's smart, instead of engaging with Napier City Council here, Hastings, whoever else around the motu, let's be smart about it and come together collectively and have a regional investment where we can, and over a period of time, that we can actually be able to evaluate to a deeper level, track and really show the impact over time. So council looks to the future for the community 150 years forward. But yet we're funding 10-week programs. So we need to probably take that same approach in terms of how we support opportunities such as this over a longer period of time so that we can do what you've suggested.
Yeah, 3 minute chair. Yeah, because I think the other thing is the cumulative impact, and I think that's the difficult one to measure, but probably the most significant outcome.
Yeah. If there's no further questions, thank you once again very much from myself personally, and I'm sure from everybody around the table. It's been fantastic to have you back again to give your final evaluation and hear some of the fabulous stories and journeys that participants in the program have been through, and incredibly proud that we've been just a little part of that and been able to actually enable it to happen. So I do look forward to those future conversations, and thank you for coming to talk to us. Kia ora.
We do from here.
So announcements from myself. I would just like to take a moment to acknowledge and recognise the Hawke's Bay participants and competitors in the Olympics that have already been successful. The two that come to mind at the moment, of course, would be Emma Twigg and Tom McIntosh. I know there have been several other Hawke's Bay medal winners, so it's been pretty cool to watch them bring it home for themselves and for New Zealand. So I think for a little country, Aotearoa has actually punched well above its weight, as we tend to do. I think yesterday I heard we were ranked 10th. So it's awesome for the whole country and awesome for us, for our Hawke's Bay competitors to be doing so well. I just ask, are there any minor matters not on the agenda? Do we have any announcements by management?
Kia ora koutou, nothing today, thanks.
Moving on to confirmation of minutes. First up, we have the draft minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on Thursday, the 27th of May 2021. Do I have a mover and seconder? Thank you to Deputy Brosnan and Councillor Wright. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Draft minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on Tuesday, the 1st of June 2021, moved by Councillor Bogue, seconded by Councillor Crown. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. And the draft minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on Tuesday, the 8th of June 2021, moved by Councillor Price, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. And lastly, the draft minutes of the extraordinary meeting of council held on Wednesday, the 30th of June 2021, moved by Councillor Crystal, seconded by Councillor Tapani. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. This brings us to our agenda items. Agenda item number 1 being retirement of redundant policies. Have Gary Rashtinsky here to speak to us today on this paper today. Welcome, Gary.
Good morning, everyone. That was a pretty hard act to follow, to be honest.
And such an exciting subject you've got to talk about.
Thank you. All right, so the purpose of this report is to request that Council retire 3 policies, being the rates refund for overpayment policy, rates early payment discount policy, and the rating exemptions and apportionments policy. Some of the policies are outdated, and they're all effectively superfluous as well. We really don't need them. So ongoing management of the policies requires time and resources that could honestly be used elsewhere. So I'll take the remainder of the report as being read, but are there any questions?
Any questions? No? Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Taylor and Councillor Simpson. Did you wish to speak to the agenda item? No?
Oh, yes, I think it's great when we remove bureaucracy that's
Couldn't agree more. Okay, I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Easiest one ever. Go for you.
Next up, we have another riveting agenda item, amendments to the 2021 Council Committee meeting schedule.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Don't mean to be rude, but I mean, we can't oversell these things.
Oh, and I'm afraid I can't add much to make it more exciting. So we have our regular update of our meeting schedule. We've got 2 that are appearing in your agenda. One is just a time change for the hearings. The second one is for the hearings for the council speed bylaws. And I'd also request at this point, now that we've been able to fix the time for the hearings for the Māori wards submissions on the 18th of October, that we add in an additional line to that recommendation. So 18th of October, 3 p.m. at the Chapman Pavilion in Maclean Park. That's where we'll have the first session of the submissions. Yep. So, any questions? I have a question.
Councillor Bogue.
Through you, Madam Mayor. It's great to see this whole schedule of our meetings, but if a member of the public wanted to know, like, what meetings do council have, say, in October, is this available on our website?
Yes, and if you go onto the council website, at the bottom of the welcome page, you go down to meetings, and that will take you to the location on the website that gives you the meeting calendar and also gives you access to the agendas and the minutes.
Good. So this whole document here is on.
Well, it's not this exact document, but it gives you the dates and times of all the meetings. Yeah.
Would it be possible to put this on the council website?
What we have is interactive, so it can actually take you to the agenda and minutes. So what we have is something even better on the website.
Although if people don't know what the name of the meeting is, but are wondering, well, what's coming up in October or whatever?
Yes, you
can
can
do
filter by
that.
date or by meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? And a mover and seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor McGrath, seconded by Councillor Bogue. Did either of you wish to speak to that? Put the motion then. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. And next up, we have the minutes of the Omarunui refuse Landfill Joint Committee held on 18th of June 2021. Shall we take this as read?
Take it as read, I believe, yes.
Do I have a mover and seconder for this item? Thank you, Councillor Tapini, seconded by Councillor McGrath. And did anyone who's a member on this committee wish to talk to anything specifically to the minutes?
No, not specifically to the minutes, Your Worship, just to notify the rest of our team that they had, that the staff met with Mana Whenua as part of the resource consent for the next stage of the landfill on the weekend just past at Waihoki Marae. And so I would acknowledge the staff that attended and the wonderful reception and opportunity by Waihoki to participate in the conversation, and it's going well at this stage.
Kia ora, thank you for that. Okay, I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. And lastly, as our new agenda items today, we have the minutes of the Joint Waste Futures Project Steering Committee meeting held on the 18th of June 2021. So again, I will take this as read and ask for a mover and seconder, please. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Brosnan and Councillor Price. Again, invite a member from the committee to speak if they wish.
I was just sort of going to make the comment, and it's something I've discussed with the Chief Executive, and I think we discussed at our LTP as well, that there's probably a little bit more reporting we could do on the way that we are enacting our WMMP, both through to Council and this committee. So just informing Council that there are a few conversations happening in that space, and we should see some different reporting coming through.
Thank you very much. If there's no further questions, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. So now moving on to the reports and recommendations from the standing committees. First up, we have the reports. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you, Your Worship.
We have the reports from the Audit and Risk Committee held on the 16th of June. As usual, I will work through these. If there was any that you wish to vote on separately, please indicate and we will do that separately. So first up, we had the External Audit, Audit New Zealand Management Report, Consultation Document 2021-31. Number 2, External Accountability, Investment and Debt Report. 3, the Risk Management Report, June 2021. 4, Audit and Risk Charter Review. 5, Sensitive Expenditure, Mayor and Chief Executive. 6, Procurement Action Plan to address the findings of the internal audit of tendering processes. 7, Local Government Reform. And lastly, the Health and Safety Report to the 31 May 2021. Could I have a mover and thank you, Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Simpson. Did you wish to speak to any of the papers? No. Any questions from anybody regarding any of the papers?
I'll just ask a brief question through you, Your Worship. In item 6 in the minutes, I note that I think our procurement lead was Fair Weld, and just wondering, is that role one that we are filling, and is that being advertised?
Through you, Your Worship, so recruitment for that role is being undertaken. In the meantime, we have a contract with MB that offers procurement services to councils. Just invite the Director of Corporate Services. Is there anything else you want to add? Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's no further questions, I'll put the motion for these reports and recommendations from the Audit and Risk Committee. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. On to the reports from Napier People and Places Committee held on the 1st of July 2021. Number 1, the Napier Community Safety Survey 2021. 2, Aquatics Survey 2021 Report SIL Research. And 3, Napier Libraries Summer Reading Program Funding 2021 to 2022. Number 3 was a decision of council. Okay, so ignore that one. Do I have a mover and seconder? Thank you, Councillor Bogue and Councillor Wright. Did you wish to speak to any of the papers, and do we have any questions? So I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Reports from the Prosperous Napier Committee held 1st of July 2021. One paper being the council procurement policy. Do I have a mover and seconder? Thank you, Councillor Taylor and Councillor Crown. Did you wish to speak to that? Do we have any questions? I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Reports from Sustainable Napier Committee held on the 8th of July 2021. Number 1, the revised CCTV policy. 2, waste levy expenditure report. 3, the Lacane toilet block renewal. And 4, coastal erosion funding recommendation. Moved by Councillor Price, seconded by Councillor Crystal. Do you wish to speak to any of those? No. Any questions? I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. And then the reports from the Future Napier Committee held on 8th of July 2021. First up, the resource consent activity update, followed by the Napier spatial picture. I've skipped from number 1 to number 3 here on my summary. Is there something? No, just the
number 2 is
numbering's
Napier
wrong.
spatial.
Okay, great. And lastly, the draft district plan.
Through you, Madam Mayor, can we just provide a brief update on Napier spatial picture, please?
Absolutely.
Through our sort of initial sharing of the document with Hastings District Council, there has been a small change to the spatial plan that will be going up for consultation in terms of amending some of the aspects related to boundaries. So minor change, all sorted, ready to go, but just wanted to update Council. Thank you. Can I just ask Richard, did you have anything to add?
No, I can give you some detail on the change, but I'm sure it's you want to carry on.
Thank you. Cheers.
Councillor Bowe.
Can I just ask what's the difference between a spatial picture and a spatial plan?
Through the Mayor, the spatial picture is really the indication part of it. It's not, it hasn't been gone through, I guess, the process of working out whether the feasibility behind the places you want to, you identified for intensification or growth and those things. So what I mean is, it does, can we actually produce?
Sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, we need to speak into a microphone, or those online won't hear. Thank you.
Yeah, start from the beginning.
Yeah, so the spatial picture is really an indicative concept that has been worked through with our stakeholders in the community to identify places where we think Napier should be growing or intensifying. That translates into a spatial plan once you've done all the homework and unbundled those to see if the infrastructure can be provided to those areas, if there are other interests in those parts of the land that we need to consider, you know, and also sort of other overlays like I guess coastal erosion and highly productive lands and all those sorts of things. So it's basically, the plan is where the real work happens, and it's what's called structure planning goes with that as well, to understand the feasibility, and those structure plans then knit in to the district plan where you actually start zoning it and making, and then it actually makes it all happen legally in a regulatory sense. So the spatial picture is really the front end, and it's non-regulatory. Yeah.
Okay, if there's no further questions, do I have a mover and seconder? Deputy Mayor Brosnan, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Crown. Did you wish to speak to any of the? No. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. And finally, the reports and recommendations from the Māori Committee held on the 23rd of July 2021. Māori Committee Terms of Reference Development and Māori Wards Final Consultation Plan. Do I have a mover and seconder for these papers? I'm happy to move from the chair, seconded by Councillor Mawson. I don't wish to speak to these in any way. Does anyone have any questions? Deputy Mayor Brosnan.
Sorry, in item 2, just a small correction to bullet point 1. It's referred to as Hawke's Bay District Council. If that could just be clarified, whether it's, I think it means Hawke's Bay Regional.
Regional.
Yeah, just
Thank
flagging.
you.
Thank you.
No further questions. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Moving to our reports under delegated authority, and we will move these together as well. 1 is tenders let and 2 is documents executed under seal. Do we have any questions first up for either of these agenda items? No, so I'll ask for a mover and seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Crown. No questions or further comments? I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. That brings us to the conclusion of the open part of our council meeting today. So I would just now like to have a mover and seconder to exclude the public, please. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Brosnan and Councillor Price. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. And we will have a few